sing Eone Nimi is in Greek, we can't sing, what should it be, you know? And my church learned it one way, your church used it another, you had another translation, we could not sing it together. And little by little, and I'm talking 10, 15 years, these kinds of conversations went on until finally, it might have been, I'm guessing on dates, but about the year 2000, the Holy Synod, our metropolitans, got together and they agreed upon a translation for Christos Anesti. And then they turned to the National Forum and they asked us to set it to music, which we did. And we sent it back to them. This shows you the vagaries of how things happen. We sent it back to New York, and the Archbishop, Demetrius at the time, and the others there didn't like it. So they changed the translation. They used the word trampled down upon, just to make it fit. And the idea was a new criterion now. It has to be more familiar to what the people in America are used to singing since the early 1930s and on. So, long story short, we got the Christos Anesti. It dealt with the standard English. It gave us new music, but familiar music, still Byzantine music. The melody is still there, but slightly different to fit the words. And we also had an agreed upon word change. And that was, I think, the beginning of the bishops really getting serious about the standard translation. They had several committees rolling over because there are lots of discussions. And finally, I think it must have been in early, maybe 2012, 2013, they had the translation approved by the Patriarch and his synod in Constantinople, and called upon again the National Forum to help them create a hymnal. And at first they wanted a pew book with just the text, and then I think they thought a hymnal was only English. But we convinced them that why are you making the parishes buy two books when you can put it together in one? And they just didn't realize that you could, I'm trying to find one that isn't up, well, here. You can have text and music in the same book, and we got this, okay? That set off then, now that we have a standard translation, then we had the composers go to work who are trained in composition. Because another thing that began to happen is that local choirs couldn't wait those 15 years. They wanted English right away. So what happened? Somebody decided, well, I'll take this text and I'll fit it in somehow. And they changed the text. Instead, what we had working for this was a committee composed of choral composers, composed of Byzantine chanters, composed of theologians, and composed of people who knew linguistics. And that team together worked 3 years to create the music. And there was another group too. It was Maria Karitzis and me, because I was national chairman at the beginning of the process, and then Maria was at the end when we were close to this. Our role was to say, well, is it singable? Because sometimes this great committee came up with something so perfectly right in their minds, either linguistically or musically or according to the Byzantine chant, that they liked it, but we said, it's not singable, it's too hard. People aren't ever going to put this trill in. And then we also had one more voice. We had the Archbishop's voice and some of the other bishops that were struggling with this whole concept of, do we use the music that came to us in America from Sakalaridis, who simplified Byzantine chant. And the purists in Byzantine chant said, and nowadays they're really, opposed to the things that Socrates did, and felt that those melodies were wrong. We lost something in Byzantine chant by following Socrates. But the people knew the melodies of Socrates. So even though we had gone through the whole liturgy and kind of settled on everything, and we were so proud of ourselves because we said the chanters are going to love this, because we put in sharps and flats to make it closer to the modes that the chanters were singing. We could never recreate it because we were singing quarter tones, but at least in half notes. And we really felt good about it. We thought, wow, this is finally, after all these years. And Archbishop Demetrius said, no, he said, I want you to take out those sharps and flats because it's not like the people sing, what they're used to. So we did, except I think you probably, those of you who are studying chant or chanters, there's still a few hymns we missed some, and so they're in there. But see, that was the thought of, it has to be something that keeps the theology through the words. It has to be something that's based in Byzantine chant, but we also have to be pragmatic and look at, how do people sing Christos Anesti? We can't change it that much. It's going to be too hard, so we fiddled with that. But anyhow, all of that came to the Green Book. So now we have the Green Book, and there's no longer a need for amateurs, people like me, to say, well, I'm going to have to take this hymn and put English to it. The example in my church is we had a new priest come in September, and our church is Annunciation. And we happen to use a lesser known, this is for years in Buffalo, we've had it since I was little, the same melody, but it's not, the text is not, today is the crown of your salvation. It is, today is the beginning of our salvation. And I always say, it's much easier to teach kids what today is the beginning of our salvation. Teaching kids, how do you explain the crown of salvation to a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old? So we've kept that. We've kept the old one because it's what's the tradition in Buffalo. But Father said, well, it says, oh, at the end it's, oh, woman full of grace, but we never really call the Theotokos woman. We usually refer to her as lady. Can we put lady in? Well, woman, lady, I could just put it in. But then, because our newsletter is called Glad Tidings, he said, he's very creative. He says, instead of saying, what is it? Let's see, I forgot what the one is.
Hail Mary.
What is it?
Hail Mary.
No. Yeah, Hail Mary. No. Oh woman full of grace. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. I forgot what the old way of done, but now we say, to bring you glad tidings of his glad tidings of his. Boy, I'm really losing it. Well, anyhow, but the word glad tidings was different in syllables. Glad tidings. All right, and it doesn't fit the melody. Well, I happen to know Kevin Lawrence, who's one of the major composers. Actually, his music matches, it's the companion to this. And properly asked him as a composer who studied in how you change music to fit the text. And he made me a new copy to fit Glad Tidings of His Grace. I think that's what it is, right?
Sounds right to me.
Sounds good. So that's to give you a picture of all the complexities that goes into moving our country into a standard translation and then helping our church musicians implement that translation with their music. And why it's, as hard as it is to say, okay, we chose this for us. It's hard for people that have done things for a long time. I had troubles in Buffalo. They're always saying, well, with Lou Master, we didn't sing this melody. Can't we go back and sing Lou's? And what I usually say to them, I did in the beginning, let's first learn this. And we have. and we've learned this, we started out, just like I think you're doing, we learned this in unison. Okay, then after, it was during COVID too, so it had to be after, probably it was over a period of 2 years, but COVID was in the middle of that. Then we began learning the parts. But the nice thing is, I realized by everybody learning the melody, we were better as a choir when we moved into parts because we recognized that melody. There was an example once when I was a choir member, we were singing Sosankidia, Save the Lord Your People. And we were practicing it, and one of our basses, he had this troubled look on his face, he was agitated. He said, "Why are we learning a new melody?" And I thought, well, because we have a new melody. And the more he talked, and finally, you know what the problem was? He'd been singing his bass part all his life. And that's when people said Sosankidia to him, that's the melody that he had in his head. He didn't know Sosankidia to him that was a new melody. Because my theory was he'd never practiced the melody. So there's big advantage to what you're doing here of doing the, everybody doing the melody and getting that ingrained. And musically, I think what it does is you create a better ensemble because you can't just sing your tenor part, you have to be hearing the parts. So it's a tricky thing that you're doing as a choir member, 4-part choir member. You're learning, you're singing one thing, but you have to be aware of what the other people are doing. If the sopranos and altos are going too loud and you can't hear the basses, they know to tone down a little bit or vice versa. So it's really an advantage to doing it the way you're doing it. It's not always, it doesn't have to be that way, but I think there is that kind. We did it out of necessity. So that gives you a little glimpse of what's going on in the Archdiocese. There is now a new book. It's blue. It doesn't have the music in it, but I took a quick look, of course, for sure. I took a quick look. They didn't touch the translations, thank goodness, because in my mind it's like after 5-6 years of work with a team of people with you. Because the other thing we did, I'll backtrack. Once we finished this, we were invited to a synod meeting, and one of the priests who was a member of this team sang the entire book to them during the meeting, and they approved it. And then again, it was sent to the patriarch as the whole deal, and so it was approved by the patriarch. So that's how we were with this. Now we have a new translation, and I think it's partially, as far as I can tell, some fairly minor changes to the priest part. Like one thing I know for sure, in this book, you do not repeat Venamis after the priest comes out and says Venamis. It took that out. In the new blue book, Venamis is back in. So those are the kinds of changes. Supposedly now they're printing music. It's very vague. We don't know what's going on, but we're working to say, why are you doing that? Look at the work that went into this just 5 years ago. 5 years ago, 10 years ago. 215 seems like a long time. Doesn't seem that long. So we're in the process of trying to negotiate that. But the nice thing about this is for the choir, or this is for the people, and sometimes for the choir too. But we have Kevin Lawrence's music that absolutely matches this. It's the companion to this for the most part. There are a couple notes, mostly ending notes that maybe held a little bit longer, a little bit differently than this.
Yeah, if I could just interject, just short thing. I did talk to Bishop Sebastian about it because they came out with that new liturgy book, and just so people know kind of what that's referring to, the whole Archdiocese has moved toward trying to follow the patriarchal typicon. So there's a couple slight differences on the priest parts, but it's very minor, and whether we'll end up using that liturgy book or not, when I asked Bishop Sebastian about it, he was basically like, I'll look at it at some point, and we'll see down the road, but it's not
something.
not pressing or anything like that. And if we did do it, it's very minor differences, and it's almost all just the priest stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
They could have just done it because they also before this they did a book just for priests. I think it was red. So we had a priest book, and they were going to do a plain pew book and then this, but they ended up just doing this. This is the other part for Sunday school. I'll hold this up so the Sunday school teachers can hear. These are the basic hymns of the liturgy for instruction in Sunday school. Okay, and for everyone, there's a booklet. There's 11 hymns here, and there's a booklet. And inside, we changed this to fit the melodies and the new translation here. So this matches this, and then here it tells you some little information about the hymn. If you're teaching it in Greek as well as English, it gives you some keywords to talk to the kids about. Down here, there's some information about the icon here that the kids can color or take home. And then up here are lots of teaching suggestions for the teachers, how you would go about using this. Also for parents. We sell this a lot to the parents as a family packet, so they can do that. And then best of all, on this one, we recorded a teaching lesson. And it's for the Sunday school teachers who say they're not singers and they're afraid to teach the hymns. And I'll talk with you today, I hope, about the importance of teaching these hymns to the Sunday school kids. Got to be part of the curriculum. It's not music lessons. It's theology. And we're just teaching theology just like they did in the early church through the hymns. But what the CD does, and it's also a flash drive, it takes the children through phrase by phrase. There's a woman who sings the phrase, and then she asks the kids to sing it. Then she sings the next phrase and asks the kids to sing it, all on tape. And then she has them sing the whole thing through together. So the teacher just needs to play there, and the kids can follow along. So it makes it very easy for them. It's also nice if either the choir director or a member or a chanter can actually go and teach a little bit. In Buffalo and in Indianapolis, what I would do is I took the last 10 minutes, after liturgy's over, the kids are still in Sunday school while the priest gives the homily or speaks or whatever's happening, the blessing or the chrismation or whatever happens. I would leave and go into the Sunday school classrooms, and I had 10 minutes. But, and I did it probably twice a month. But over the whole year, I did little short lessons, but had the kids singing, and then they sang in church. And we do that in Buffalo too. They sing together with the chanters on Sunday. In the beginning, all we did was I called them little prayers and Lord have mercy. And we practiced the little prayers in a very simple Lord have mercy. Different from what the choir sings, not the more complicated ones that you sing. Theirs was just keep, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy.
That's what I was doing.
Kids pick it up.
These
And they sing it, the congregation loves it, the priest is pleased, everything. But they sing in church. So Sunday school has a double role. You have a little lesson to teach with them in Sunday school class, but they also have to sing in church. They have to be part of the singing in church.
Are you saying that the children sing from the pews with them, or are they in the park where they get to sing like the petitions?
Well, in both churches, we didn't have the congregation singing. They look like a little choir, but it's not a junior choir program. There's no rehearsal. It's just Sunday. It's the Sunday school choir. And sometimes I only have 2 or 3 kids. But this year I got a pleasant surprise because most Sundays it finally got to be 3 or 4 kids who would come out because their parents brought them late and they missed the whole first part of the liturgy, and that's what I concentrated on. They did Testaments Vias, they did Sosonimas, they did all the responses, and they did Agios o Theos. okay? By Agios of Theos, maybe I had 6 or 7 kids. But at the end of the year, we had an awards, little promotion moving up, and I decided this year to give them little cups with musical notes on it and all that. I had 17 names, and they all went up, and the congregation, I think even Father, I was aghast. They had 17 kids who were in the choir, but they didn't come every week. Some of them only came once. But we touched at least 17 kids during the year, and I didn't realize that by just having little small classes and small things. But this is really helpful, I think, for Sunday school teachers to use and that. So, what are your questions about? I have other things I can talk to you about too. But I don't want to gab the whole time.
I suppose
What?
I'll ask one question, which is you mentioned that blue hymnal. Who was pushing that?
Oh, it's not a hymnal, it's just a liturgy book.
Oh,
It's just
liturgy
a text of the
book.
liturgy.
Yeah, it's not, there's no music in it. Yeah, it's coming from the Department of Religious Ed. In fact, did you get one, Father?
Yeah, I've got one. So it's real similar to the white spiral bound book that's out there. It's just hardbound. And yeah, just some very minor changes to it. So that's available at the Archdiocese level. Whether this metropolis ever uses it or not, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, even if they do, it's not going to create an issue because the differences are so minor.
Well, and I think the reality is so many churches have purchased, like 200, 300 of these.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to buy another book for the pews.
Mm-hmm.
But for the churches that don't, at least we can say, even if you're using the blue book, the music for the hymns is the same. And we'll probably negotiate something with the Archdiocese because our people did the formatting of the music. We have the file. I don't think they even knew we had a file. But they didn't put music in. But we could negotiate, I guess, to just do the hymns and take out the priest part on it. So that's still to come. That's a challenge.
There could be a benefit to having a hymnal and a pew book, right? Like we do
Yeah, like-
spiral, but having a leather bound or a hard bound one. So
Yeah, what we did here was we just told people if you want to sing along, there's the hymnal. If you don't want to sing, you just have something to follow along. You can pick up just the liturgy book. So we've got both
Yeah.
options there, and
Yeah.
they match up. Like 99.5% the same, basically.
Right,
It's almost
and most of the people are not reading the music here. They're just looking at it for the words and listening to you. Yeah, but this just really what this does is this sort of cues them in that, there's the priest is going to say something. It looks like I'm expected to say something. Now here I didn't realize this, but in some of the newer books of the composers do, they use the word people here. Other books you'll see they say choir. There'll be a notation right here, choir or people, because with congregational singing, they want people to sing.
What does that mean? Is that people or not?
The people.
Well, Alice is people, right?
Yeah, that's another new thing
Participant, yeah.
that's coming up. But I can talk about that a little bit more, give you some background information. Any other questions about music and text and hymnals and so I was happy when Father told me. I was surprised because for 3 years this has been out of print, and parishes have been calling, asking for this, and we don't have it yet. Instead, we have the blue book, and that's what we're really negotiating. Can we get this reprinted because it's all inclusive?
2014?
Yeah.
What year was it? 2014?
The translation was approved in 2015, and this was printed in 2018. So we finished up, it took us 3 years to do this. But again, all lay people, there were priests on the committee and all that, but we weren't employed at the Archdiocese, we were volunteering our time. Leadership of 100 gave the National Forum money to at least bring our people to Boston. We usually met in Boston, and Metropolitan Methodius of Boston was our liaison to the Synod, and he was there. And now Metropolitan Tony, who used to be Tony Rain, head of religious education, he was in and out, talk. They were all based in Boston, so we could always talk with them while we were working. So, want to talk a little bit about congregational singing? Okay. Something new, another, I should have put that down, is, yeah, I did. New English translation, new music, and now a new plan of operation. We want the people to sing. And that goes back to the early church, where everybody sang. And there was usually a leader that led people, that maybe did the more complicated hymns, sang those, or the special hymns of the day that maybe the people wouldn't know. The biggest image I have of the early church, besides thinking about, they worshiped in caves, they worshiped in homes and Christ. So it was very close like this. And just having a leader and everybody singing, because music, the hymns are prayers. So it was a way then for teaching the faith to the people, because they didn't have printing presses and books and materials. How are you going to talk to the people of Corinth or Antioch or wherever the disciples went and their successors? So that was a major way. And then what began to happen is over the years, the chanters, who used to be just the leaders, began to take on a bigger role. There was more chant music developed. Even here in this country, more contemporaneously, bigger role for choirs. And pretty soon what happened, especially in this country, and I think for chanters, probably all over the world, they kind of took over. And the people became spectators. And that lasted, it's in my lifetime, you never sang in church. Your mother was pinching you because you had to be quiet, kinds of things. That's just how it was. And I don't know, I can't even point to when and where it started to change, but it's, I'd say, 10 or 15 years maybe now, where this idea of how come the people are just spectators? How come they're watching a play? And maybe it's because priests realized, or maybe people began to realize, what do you do after an hour and a half of just standing there watching? You sort of watch, Fifi's coming in with new dress. Or, oh, there's Sam, I haven't seen him in a bunch of years. Or, oh, look at that little kid running around, isn't he cute, Your mind starts to wander. It's a long time, like here, it's a long time to not be doing anything, or not be doing very much, I should say. Yes, supposed to be praying, but it's a big ask. I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's a big ask for that length of time. So one of the advantages of thinking about the role of the people is we really want to engage people more in the liturgy, which is named in Greek, the liturgy is work of the people. Okay, so what's the work? Well, it's not really work, it's singing the prayers of our church. So that's the stimulus behind this. And again, the Greeks aren't much singers in church. We just don't have that tradition at all. Growing up, you know, maybe Christos Anesti, you sang. But that was about it. Yet Greeks were singers. They would sing, the folk songs lustily, having their parties and all that. They burst into song, but they didn't sing in church. So it's been a while now that people are beginning to think, how do you get the people to sing? One of the things that I think we have that's very helpful to us, maybe it's a blessing from God, definitely a blessing from God, to have new people come into the faith who are not Greek, who are not Orthodox from birth. And they come from singing churches, right? You know?
Methodist.
Yeah, Methodist, Baptist, Episcopalian. Well, the Episcopalians didn't really sing, but even the Catholic Church and the Episcopal Church now is starting to try to get people singing, at least in certain parts. For us, what's different about it is a friend of mine, who actually was our second national chairman, George Demas of blessed memory, he once counted up the times that hymns or music, things were sung or intoned in the church, in the liturgy. And you know what he found out when he did his calculations? That 80% of the liturgy is either intoned by the priest, the deacon, either intoned or sung. So that's how much we can participate. You know, that our church is already a singing church. It's just that the congregation has been left out. So to make a singing church in its fullest, we want to get the congregation to sing. So that's sort of a little bit of the background of why we're sort of into that. And I worked on it a lot with Father Christos last year, the last year that he was here. We had already moved to pretty much, even though he was a priest born in Greece and did his first ministries in London, he wanted English. Our chanter, who was a very strict Byzantine chanter, meaning his vision of his role as primary above the choir, and he's from Greece, he even realized that we have to do some English. And we began working toward how to get the congregation to sing. Now, we took a little different approach in Buffalo. We picked some hymns to start with to get people used to singing. And the hymn that we started with was our church hymn of Annunciation. And went through sort of like an announcement process that we were going to do this. We put it in the bulletin. And we made pew cards because, remember I said our church hymn, well, the hymn of the Annunciation happens not to be in this book, but we created cue cards. Well, these are for our chapel. But anyhow, so I could hold up a card like this and everybody knew it was time to sing the church hymn. And little by little, we got people singing. And what I noticed is we have a chapel too. And in the summer times, we have most of our liturgies at the chapel. And I thought, we'll sing more there. And I thought, isn't that interesting? So I thought, well, it's probably because it's a smaller place. And also, this year, I even realized more, it's because the people are closer together. Because I happened to say that to Father, a couple of weeks ago, you know, we sing more in the chapel because it's smaller. We've got a big Gothic church. It's not even an Orthodox, big Gothic First Presbyterian church. And his feeling is, well, when we fill the church, when we get to that point, people will be standing close to each other, and they'll be able to see. Well, anyhow, we started, and with Father Christos, we were very deliberate. We took a much more structured approach by picking a hymn, and then we encouraged them to sing the petitions. And then it sort of just evolved. Now with Father Paul there, he's a singing priest. His voice is a singer's voice. And what he'll sing along, and it's very easy to pick up his note, and sometimes he even sings the hymn along with us. So we've got there a kind of a unique situation. Yours is different because you're just asking everybody to start singing all at once. And there's nothing wrong with either. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with either, but that's good. Every church has to figure out their own way. But look what you've got. You've got a bunch of English speakers as chanters. You've committed to all learning the same thing. See, our chanters are still using their ways of doing the melodies, and sometimes even their translations, although I have to say the past couple of years they're really adhering to this translation a little bit. They forget about the church hymn, so I have to give them the card every so often. I noticed last Sunday they're singing back to the old way of singing our church hymn, different from what Father Paul wanted to change, but we're working on it. So I think that the hardest part of congregational singing is looking at for you, because you already have something going, looking at the PR possibilities and the planning possibilities, the educational possibilities of how do you get more from your group, whatever it is. And it means things like, what's the communication and the coordination between the priest, the chanter, and the choir, and the word? Because you have to make, like with our church hymn, we had to make a commitment that we're all going to sing the same thing. Now it means, the choir has to, maybe, I don't know, it means different musical things, because the choirs have the music that's being done. The chanters don't have this music. They're used to doing it. And what's happening, like for our church hymn, they're going to the DCS, the digital chant stand. That has another translation. So now here, Father and I and the choir are working real hard to get our congregation to use the words that Father Paul wants, and the chanters are singing different words. So that's something we have to work on in Buffalo. We've got to get ourselves in line. Let me just finish, because there's two other places. What's in the bulletin? You pick up the bulletin that comes, and if you're using Bulletin Builder, they have a different translation for the Hymn of the Annunciation. So we've got to change that in our bulletin to make it the same as what the choir and the chanters and the priests are saying. So it's attention to detail, but it's sitting down and deciding what are we going to do. And then we're committed to doing that in all areas. It might mean cluing in the church secretary who does the bulletin. It might be talking to the parish council about why we're, I wondered why you always
And the general contractor.
Not understand.
So the DCS uses a different translation than the Green Book?
Well,
Yes,
sort
it
of.
is.
They finally now, up until I think it was sometime over last summer of the year, Father Sear from Deeds was actually on our first, I forgot to give you the name of the committee. The committee that worked on this, we were called the Oli Mazik Committee. Remember? And we still, it's because ahead of time, I forgot to tell you about this. Even before this was conceived, when we heard about what all the choir directors and lay people were doing by just putting English onto their music, we thought, this is going to be a mess, because everybody's doing it differently. So we decided, I proposed to the group, why don't we put out our own? And the group was a little afraid. We don't have authority to do that. Maybe we better not do that. We spent a whole day at the Philadelphia Clergy Lady talking about why we should not do that until Bishop Demetrius Kuchau, did you know him? He was in Florida. He came in and he said, who else but you, the National Ministry of Music, who else but you should do this?
Was he the OCMC?
That what?
Bishop Dimitri, was he the one that was the OCMC?
Oustred?
That just died, though.
He just died, yeah. He was connected with the St. Fortius Shrine.
Yeah.
His last name was
But you might
Kuchel.
tell me what Oli Mazik means, because
Yeah.
I doubt if anybody
Yeah.
knows what Oli Mazik means.
You know where they came from,
I knew
Bishop?
you didn't know, right?
Back, okay, when I was a pup, in church for the Patrimonio. Olimazzi.
That's exactly
And
right.
Bishop Iacolos, who
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Chicago, said, "Kake mera ta prostituto Olimazzi sto Patrimonio."
Yeah, exactly.
And
Well,
And,
and that's
Alexius
what, so
would do the
that's
same
what,
thing.
well, that's what we
I-
came, that
Alexius would
committee.
do with the
And
whole
what
state.
the committee
What
did
do you think?
first is we polled all our National Forum members and saying, what are the top 10 hymns that everybody should sing? And we got a list of about 20. We cut it down to 12. And that's how we decided what to do for this. And we actually had our translations first. So when the Synod asked us to help them, we said, here. We didn't give them this, but we gave them our translations. And even though we were lay people in doing those translations, but we had good chanters and good music educators and good people who knew Greek and knew the services. I would say of the 12, we had, I would say, 7 or 8 of them, they took carte blanche. They said, that's fine. Another 2 or 3, they just changed a few words, and then a couple, they really redid the whole thing. And that became the basis of our first work on this. And so our committee is known. I'm off track of why I went to mention that.
Well, that was from Digital Chanson with Father Seraphim
Oh, yeah.
and the translation iron.
Yeah, and then he, once we got the first set done of the Olimazzi hymns, before they asked us to do this, he left the committee because he wanted to develop the DCS more and do his, and he had different versions of the hymn than, he didn't want to do it by committee. So that what the committee was deciding, the Olimazzi committee was deciding, was different from what he wanted to do, so. But then we brought on another, 2 other priests on that. And once this was done, now he works at the he's not physically there, but he has a role at the Archdiocese. He was told to whatever's in this book should be translated, because there's thousands, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 other hymns that don't have a standard translation. He took and did the front part of this book, but he did not look at the appendix. Okay, so those hymns are not translated. At least I haven't looked recently. I don't think so.
Not yet.
But the important thing is the resurrectional Apolitikia are in the appendix. So they are different. So you really have to watch that when you're doing it.
So some of the people here are a little bit newer. So just so you know, Father Seraphim, when he was doing it originally, it was called Ages Initiative.
Yeah.
And it was not part of the Archdiocese, so he kind of had that leeway to just sort of do his own thing. Since it's come over to Digital Chanson and it's part of the Archdiocese, they're asking him to standardize all of that. And you just have to understand it's a few people with a tremendous workload of all of these hymns that they're composing, translating, all that. So it's like they're working on it. They've done amazing things. We just have to be patient as they kind of standardize some of this. It might take some time.
Yeah, it's well, and the other thing is, the funeral hymns are in the appendix, and I haven't looked to see what Father Seraphim has in the DCS.
His Digital Chanson Memorial, looks like it was pretty much identical
Close.
to the one that is in the liturgy book, which is like the same as that.
This
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm not sure if the music was note for note the same, but at least the translation was the
yeah,
same.
yeah. So those are, I know once Archbishop Demetrius came to our meeting, we were in Denver, and he spoke about, he knew we were advocates of standard translations, and he said, the Orthodox way is let everything come in, let it come in, because you never know, and the cream will rise to the top. And then he stopped, and he said, but maybe, he said, I think it's time now to narrow the funnel. And we were overjoyed, because that meant maybe we'll get a standard translation. Well, it still took another 10 years to go. But that is, I think the bishops are so careful and they think so deeply theologically. You know, the words of those hymns are very precious to them. That it just takes them a long time to come to some sort of agreement, too. I mean, they each have their ways of looking at things, and they've got to come in agreement, and it's a long process. But, you know, this was a long way towards, at least for Sunday liturgy, doing that.
Do you have advice on good ways to provide opportunities for people to join choirs? Let's say like different things you can do for those that already participate in music or have a musical background, and those that don't, that are more afraid. Is there a...
Yeah, it's hard. You know, everybody's busy these days. And some people are very open. You know, what I do, and I don't think the forum hit, we have some papers on recruitment, but nothing really big, but just listening to other people and all that. I always approach it, one way I approach it is, you're new to the church. I love it. I'm introduced to new people at church because the spiel that I use is come and join the choir family. You know, and I talk to the choir. I said, we can't always sit together. We've got to use the coffee hour to talk to people. You know, we need guys to join the choir, so talk to the guys. We're a really friendly bunch. And it even went so far that, because I'm not used to just going up to somebody and saying, are you new? And start talking to them easily. But I happened to notice one summer there was a guy in the chapel next to me, new. And then I saw he had a stack of books next to him. I thought, oh, he must be thinking of joining the church. I better say hello. So I did, and I asked him if he was interested in music and all that. Turns out he plays the bagpipe. And so there was the opportunity, and I said, well, would you like to join the choir? But I take the tack, you know, we'll be your friends. You know, we'll sit with you at coffee hour. That personal touch, and that's an easy ask. And then I ran into a little roadblock. I heard through the grapevine that Father was going to come and talk to me because he wasn't Orthodox. And see, the serious chanters believe that that's a lower order and you should be Orthodox in a choir. And I thought, now what am I going to do? I finally meet guys, and I got Scott, who's coming to rehearsals. He's really loyal. He's a helper, you know. So I said, Father, when he came, he's before the choir, and he said, Vicki, I need to talk with you. And I said, well, I've heard. I think I know what it is, Father. And he goes, oh, and I told him, and I said, well, Father, think about it. What better religious education could you have other than by being in a choir? Look what you learn as a choir member. You learn the meanings of the hymns. So there's theology. You learn the order of the liturgy and the order of services and why things are done the way they are, especially if the director is a teacher too. And you learn about the cycle of the church year, why we have different hymns at different times. He looked at me and says, you're right, Vicki. He said, go ahead, don't worry, I'll take care of George. Scott shouldn't be in the choir. So I used that.
Was he chrismated shortly thereafter?
I'm
I
sorry.
said, was he chrismated shortly thereafter, or what happened there? What was the end of the story?
He was chrismated in the summer.
But it did happen.
It did happen, and we sang, and I'll even do it now. I'm going to leave this with you. I brought it. Do you know that some of you maybe have been in the Antiochian church? Do you know the hymn Many Years?
Right, yes. God
Yeah.
grant you many years.
Sing it.
God grant you
That's the
many
text.
years. God grant you many years. God grant you many,
can go on.
years.
Yeah, I go down. And this one I go
So
down.
that's nice.
Sometimes it's done 3 times, but
We don't do it on birthdays.
what this is like a laity version of Tonevlagunda, Lord protect him or blesses us, that we sing to the priest. What this does, if you can find as many opportunities to sing this, like one time we had somebody celebrating their 50th anniversary and they wanted a blessing, so Father did that at the end of the service. We asked Father, can we do that? Whenever now somebody's chrismated, and Father usually at the end of the services introduces them, we do it.
We have that chrismation coming up.
What's that?
We have that chrismation coming up tomorrow. do we
Yeah,
not?
that's tomorrow.
You want to do it tomorrow?
But I know the tune already. So
Okay.
we could,
You want to do it? Oh, let's.
And communion.
Well, I learned this from the church in Clinton, because they do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
That's
Same here.
What this
Same
might,
here.
this helps in
What's the name of
that making it a singing parish. You know, because it's so, God grant you many years, that's the text. And the melody is very melodic, you know, it's not a difficult chant or anything like that. Let's try it one more time. Now, here's how, is it just one person?
Well, so Logan is probably the best at like following the music and picking things up. So like if you were going to try to do like a 2-part harmony tomorrow.
No, I would just do it
Just sing.
in, no,
Oh,
just
Just sing.
in unison.
She's
We don't-
saying is
we-
it just one person being chrismated?
Yeah.
It's just one person.
Yeah.
Parker, isn't it?
Yes, it's one.
Yeah, and I was wondering whether to do it just once or 3 times.
I'll let you make that call, whatever you want to do.
Want to do it
Simon.
3?
We always do.
Maybe it'll pick up, because the idea is,
Yeah, you
it's so
want that
easy that
repetition.
It'll
maybe,
pick up as a third time.
let's try. So what you do when you do it, what we do, when we do it 3 times, we do the first 2 lines, and you notice, if you just look at the top note, the melody goes up at the end. So, God grant you many, many years, and then you do peace and prosperity, health and happiness, God grant you many, many years. That's the second time. Back to the top when you go down at the end. God grant you many years. God grant you many years. God grant you many, many years. That's how it goes. So what it does is the choir becomes a presence of joy, like the congregation feels good, especially when they start singing this. I used to, in Buffalo, an Antiochian church, they do it all during coffee hour. They'll all burst into, somebody's got a birthday, instead of singing happy birthday, they sing this.
Yes. We did that at the
So,
Holy Resurrection.
yeah. So I would give this was my gift to you, just to do it because it's easy for us to sound good. The congregation begins to love it. It's a loving piece of the family of God, of this church. That you're welcoming everybody. And even things like that, Jonathan, help you in recruitment because you're good guys. And I like what, as a parishioner, I like what you do. The choir, the choir does nice things for our congregation. That lays an easier take. And then the rest is just, I'll tell you another thing I do. In the summer, I have open rehearsals and I put it in the bulletin. You don't have to know Greek, we use phonetics. You don't have to read music, we'll help you.
I'm out for the summer. That would be an
Try it
idea
out,
for me.
and
I'm
I
a
did.
school teacher.
I got one guy,
So,
he, in the end of August, he told me he wanted to join the rest of the choir, become a choir member. And he did for 2.5 years, and then he's run into, they're taking care of his wife's father who's living with them, and he really demands a full-time person there all the time. And so he stepped back from the choir, but he joined after that. This summer I didn't have any takers, but I was glad. It's never be worried that it's only one person accepting. So, I guess in your choir, you have to, so you don't really have a director yet, so maybe it's better. You all have to go, oh, here's another, because now I can talk to the Sunday school teachers too. Sunday school, you're a Sunday school?
No.
Who's the Sunday school?
I'm a choir leader.
Okay, Sunday school leader.
Not leader, but.
It has to be, you have to do something in the Sunday school. You have to teach the kids to sing, teach them the hymns. And I say to the Sunday school teacher, I am not the music teacher. I am a Sunday school teacher. I use hymns as my tools. But I'm teaching Sunday school stuff to them. I'm not teaching music. And I don't teach them about half notes and quarter notes and stuff.
They just sing together. But I was doing that last year. I would go to each classroom and started out with Lord have mercy.
Yeah.
But the problem is time.
10 minutes.
Just don't have enough time.
But if I do it for 10 minutes, they give me 10 minutes
Because
at
they're
the
the
end.
little ones.
When the kids want to leave and
So
go,
would you
the
put
parents out there, I give them 10
You put
minutes.
them all together, all classes together, or would
Well,
you go
no,
separately?
in mine, I get first grade through fourth grade. Because the fifth and sixth grade teacher didn't want to give her kids to me. This year we insisted,
We've had
but
that.
I think what changed it is the father got the altar, the guy that, we have one guy that just takes care of the altar boy. Well, he does everything, but he's the captain of the altar boys, an adult. And he allows the altar boys up to sixth grade in my parish come out and sing with the little kids sing on the left side of the church down at the very front. That made a big impression, I think, to parents, because the kids in the gold robes and the white robes, three of them come out and they
Right,
sing.
They pay attention too.
And they pay
They're not doing
attention.
a
Yeah,
choir,
yeah. And so that's important. The other thing is to be open to, I had a first grader who, I swear he's going to be an archbishop someday. Now he's in third grade, he already knows the entire priest part. He says it with the priest. He knows the chanters, and he's not even Greek. He knows what the chant. He's singing. He doesn't have a voice at all. Of course, doesn't understand pitch. Yeah, let them into the senior choir. One year I had Ambrose and Gabriel, the two of them. They were in second grade, and that was hard to manage to have them. And the other choir directors were going, Vicki, we're so distracted by these little kids. They want to be in choir, so let them in. The other thing is, kids in school do have choruses. They're in choruses. Why they don't come and sing, I don't know. But if you can figure a way to get the teens in to the choir, I haven't done it yet. I'm thinking, because I know there are like several young, probably 6th and 7th grade girls who are very good singers, beautiful little voices. I'm going to try this coming year to have them learn the Politicum that happens to be on. They always sing the first Sunday. The kids always sing on the first Sunday of the month. So whatever that Politicum is going to be, I'm going to try to have those girls do it all by themselves, a trio or a quartet or something of these young girls do it, and invite them into the choir.
Most choirs are definitely under the age of 8, I would say. We're much
Under
bigger
8.
on that age than we are on the ones over. There are different reasons for that, I think. But
But that's your recruitment base, the kids under
for
8.
sure. My kids, when they go to school, like they'll go to chapel one day a week, and then they'll leave and they'll come home, and they'll ask me to turn on the music that they sing
The
at
chapel.
school that day.
Yeah.
They also sing the church music, and so it kind of, I don't know. Anyway, you get what I'm saying with that. So how do you? This is maybe on the same subject, but there are some people that aren't as pro-children or aren't, in music groups and that kind of stuff. Let's say within the church, or aren't pro this. How do you have discussions with people that don't like children participating necessarily with their things? Or
I just ignore them. Say we have to, it's our future.
Yeah,
This
that
is
sounds
our
like me.
future.
It sounds
I
like we
don't
have similar
really
personalities
think
for that, but yeah, okay.
See, I guess, Jonathan, because they're in Sunday school, they're sort of like captive audiences. Where I have the trouble is the kids learn the beginning of the services. They don't, if they're 5 minutes late, they've missed all the things that they missed those first responses and test.
Most of that.
And so I try to gently talk to the parents, they apologize, why they were late. And I said, they worked so hard and they missed the whole first part of the service. So those are the kinds of problems. But because they're in Sunday school and we have this, it's announced, the church knows it's Kids Sunday, and we have one of the altar boys reads the epistle. They do the readings, the verses, before the antiphons. They just read them. So, and then another boy is at the candle stand. So it's the Sunday school spreads those kids around. So they're in church already on Church Sunday. Then they come up to the front for the service, or they come when it's time to sing.
The kids sing with the adult choir,
No,
or they sing
by
just?
themselves.
Do you get any grief on the Sundays just with the children singing?
If they do, they don't say it to me. They love it.
They're probably not from
Yeah.
the town anyway.
Yeah. They don't.
I've been in a lot of
Well,
churches.
what they do, I know
But in a
what
lot
the
of churches, the
complaint is,
children's
that
choir,
the kids
they
are
don't want
sometimes
those.
afraid to come up.
Pensacola,
So then I said, well, just come up with them, because they sit, the kids sit with their families in the left section, but some sit in the church with their families too. And I say, come up with them. Or the other thing I have working for me is the great Sunday school principal. She goes around and grabs them, and she's strict. She just said, come on, it's time for you to sing. She brings them up there. And so we have all sorts of things.
Did you say they just do, pre-gospel or post-gospel, or did you say they do the whole service?
They do in a good year. It all depends on the year. Like last year, I didn't have as many Sundays to work with them as I could have. They sing up until communion, but they don't sing everything. They sing. Now, see, a wonderful short lesson is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Okay, we learned. I taught when I introduce it. That's me being the religious teacher. I talk to them about the Trinity and why we have 3 fingers. It's Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Now let's sing it. And I do a very quick thing, maybe for 2 or 3 weeks, and they get it. It's an easy hymn to do. They do the consecration hymn. We bless thee, we praise thee, and I do a little lesson about that. And then they do praise the Lord. So they don't do the church stuff. But what I noticed that, and I didn't really institute it, but the kids are very fluent in using this book, because I just gave it to them to keep them quiet when it was, they're not singing. And I'll say, we're on page 23. I'm constantly saying, we're on page 23, because I have like 3, 4, 5 kids. And here the Lord have mercy, but I'm not singing this. I'm singing the 2 we did earlier, just this. And I think I see that, and I've even said it in our newsletter. I write an article about why it's important for kids to sing. I can send it to you. And in fact, I have 2 others about recruit. I'll send them. They're things that I put in the monthly newsletter. We have to have write up a page.
But Vicki, when Jonathan was probably 6 or 7 years old, the old church, and we had the little red leaves, but he said, Shia, it's not till page 29. He was keeping up even when he could barely read.
Yeah.
I had an unusual upbringing. She was, to say she was, to use the word, religious about dragging me to chant stand choir.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Pick up the old ladies on the way to church and understand.
But it works.
I guess.
Yeah. thanks
But
for
so
that.
this is a good tool. I think both my other priests, I think it's important for the priest to praise the kids when they sing. And some of the priests I've had didn't do that. It was sort of the old Greek way of thinking that don't praise too much because you'll spoil the kids, you know, like giving them an evil eye or something.
There's nothing you can do to spoil them more, so it doesn't.
But I think, you know, now the current priest and a couple of other priests in Indianapolis were very good, and, you know, right, even breaking the liturgy, you know, like just before he comes out for communion, he'll stop and say, "Weren't the kids wonderful today?" And the whole congregation claps. And that, you know, that motivates the kids, but I think it helps in recruitment sort of in an indirect way.
Well, during the school year, he does a child sermon before
Yeah.
communion.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird. You'll get like this little group that's like, I don't know, they don't like love kid stuff or whatever, and then you got this overwhelming majority that does
Yeah.
love it. And I
Yeah.
would say that most of the children in our church, like I said, are under the age of 8, and the parents, who mine are 7 and 4, they want their children to be involved.
Yeah.
in this, so
Yeah.
they're more likely to participate,
Yeah.
more likely to support the, like, I don't
Yeah.
know. You worry more about the kids participating than to do
Yeah.
the adults.
Well,
but-
and I guess I just take what I get. Like, I only take 10 minutes, I'll take it. I only have 3 kids in Sunday school that day, I have 3 kids. I try not to, you know, it pains me sometimes to see other kids, but the Holy Spirit works, you know, in ways we don't know. All of a sudden, that little kid that didn't want to come, you know, and I was, you know, all of a sudden, here they come. And one little girl did that because her friend came to church and her other sister came and sang in the choir. And the friend said to the other sister, "Aren't you going to the choir?" Pretty soon, they both came. So it takes patience, and I think just when concentrate, you have kids. If you only have 4 kids, don't say you only have 4 kids. I have 4 kids. And then, yeah, yeah. And a lot of talking to parents, you know, sermons, homilies, articles in the bulletin, making a big deal of now National Church Music Sunday is coming up, October 4th. Always the first Sunday after St. Romanos Day on the 1st. There's a chance to highlight your chanters, your choir, your kids who sing, you know, highlight that, talk a little bit about why it's important for kids to learn the hymns too. You know, hymns are our faith, you know. It's not easy. I mean, you just have to be creative. But a lot of it is, I think, priest support, family support, and then choir support. Letting them come in and sing. It's sometimes disrupting to have a little kid in the choir because they don't hear the music, they don't know the music. But with mine, I just, you know, like what I do on Church Music Sunday, chanters don't like it, but I have the chanters do the first Agios o Theos, then the kids do the second time, then the choir does the third time, and then like the chanters do the fancy one after the intermission.
Yeah, we've had
We're actually
some of the families with daughters in the church, you know, they're interested in what they can do to participate and stuff. Yeah, so they
Well, that's the start.
start.
Yeah.
I mean, I think our people and our children know the music better than we think they do in a lot of cases because, for instance, we're always tweaking, me and Father, and changing things in the liturgy, so every Sunday there's something a little different. And right now we have 2 chant stands, so we're practicing antiphonal singing. So, for example, with the Psalms,
Yes,
practicing
yes,
that.
yeah.
Once in English, once in
Yeah.
Greek, once in English. Well, I forgot to remind part of our choir that we're doing that one Sunday, and so I believe the first one was Greek, and I'm waiting on them to start, and I'm over here, and they're looking at each other, and there's no music, and I'm like, oh no, and then our people just started singing. And then it shocked me. Yeah, the people just let it. And then we recovered, and everything was fine after that. But that surprised me, because not only that, they had the melody, too.
Yeah, see,
So-
what we don't know what happened, yeah.
Isaiah now, he's only 4, but he can sing God is the Lord in 4th mode. He's been singing that at the house, and he hears it in Paraclesis every Wednesday. You know, it's always in 4th mode in Paraclesis. So yeah, the kids pick it up just hearing it.
He was singing Wednesday night.
Yeah,
I thought I heard another voice back there.
Yeah.
I said,
yeah,
I
you'll do it.
asked that Jesus in the night. It was not great. It was so.
Yeah, and the other thing, I don't know if I mentioned this before, even with
Thanks for
adults, you know, the saying I like is, people say, what's the measure of your success in congregational singing? Not that the people sing loud. I don't know that in our churches, I don't know that we'll ever have the whole congregation singing loud, like in a Baptist church or an Episcopal church or whatever. But that's not the goal. The goal is that everybody's participating. And Father Heracus, if you've read his book, Living the Liturgy, he says some people are just more comfortable sub-singing. And I find that's what I hear a lot in Buffalo lately. Just singing, to themselves. Just with the ears to say or talk, or, and that's good. It doesn't have to be loud. It's just that somehow they understand what they're singing, they know what's happening during that part of the service, and they're with it, they're together.
I hear people around me singing soft, generally, but you hear, like you said, I'm sure you'll hear, like, if something's slow to start, like, you'll hear some people in the church, like, kind of be like, anyway, so, like, talking out the side of their mouth, like, so, like, start getting it going or whatever, like, throwing a bone or something.
Well, we had a priest in Indianapolis, Father Bartz.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a military chaplain, so everything was very, military. So we were starting up congregational singing, and I think it was the church hymn. And, people were sort of mumbling along, and all of a sudden you heard from the altar, "I can't hear you." And they did sing a little louder. And then I happened to go back a couple of years ago when the church was consecrated. And it was the most beautiful thing. They probably had 450 people, and the church was packed, and it was 450 people. They sang so loudly their church hymn. It was the most wonderful sound to hear them singing it so forcefully and meaningfully. It's their church being consecrated. It was just tremendous. And here they came, from just being very tentative about it.
Our two church hymns are definitely things that I think you hear the congregation sing the loudest.
Yeah.
Yeah, the two hymns of the church, we kept that. There was a priest who was here quite a while back, but he came from an opera background, and the way he wrote those hymns is definitely not, it doesn't maintain fidelity to the original notes, but all the people sing it together, so we're like, okay, the hymns of the church, we'll leave those two in place because the people are used to it, and everything else is the hymnal, but those two...
We also have the Greek versions now, thanks to Michael.
Yeah, the way Michael sings it, he repeats it in Greek after the people sing it in English, and he does it more like the authentic actual in the mode, so it sounds more like what you would expect. But that's kind of, we just left that in place. And from what I've seen, I'm sure you've seen it as well, a lot of churches will have kind of like one system of music that they're using, but the hymns of the church are like unique to that, the way that parish has gotten used to singing it.
Yeah, we use it a lot. We have to be careful of that whenever we're having a joint choir conference or a clergy lady, where there's people, whatever the host church is, you sort of have to go with what they do, because you can't do that.
and we took a mission trip to Monroe, Louisiana a few times. I was
Mission
going to go out
trip
there
or a
and
business
sing.
trip, huh?
I was filling in for a precinct there, so Logan got out there with me a couple times.
But I was going to sing because we didn't know there'd be somebody for the choir, and then their choir person showed up, thankfully, I think close to the last minute, and I'm glad he did because what he sang was completely different from what we do. Very, very low, very bass and baritone, and so I'm glad he was there because otherwise it would have been,
Just
the
you.
people would have been very confused.
Yeah, I think what he was using was that Richard Barrett volume
Oh,
of the
yeah.
liturgy, but
Yeah.
in mode 1, I think that's what he was using because it was
It was
all
beautiful.
Yeah, it's all Byzantine chant. So
Right.
he's a really skilled.
Oh,
like
yes.
I guess grew up learning it as a kid because he's a young man, but he's really
there
got
you go.
the skill set for it.
There is a, the chanters have their difficulties too. Because now we do have a cadre of very well-trained chanters who now have the certificate from Athens that they're official trained chanters. And they're much like the choirs of long ago, where the choirs loved doing Frank Desby and Anna Gallus and Tyche Zest, these brand new hymns that came, I think in the 50s, they started, 50s and 60s. Very florid, very big, they were big choirs. And, now we're toning that back. We've already done that by Kevin Lawrence, who wrote the companion to this. He wrote that for the smaller, more prevalent local choirs, local parishes. It was what our early composers wrote were for big. It had to be big choirs. You couldn't really do Desby justice by singing it with 3 people or 4 people. So we've sort of passed that. Not that we've forgotten those beautiful hymns. We'll do them at certain times of the year or in certain, maybe at the Clergy Lady Congress liturgy or some big thing, big celebration. But for the most part, we're toned down so that the hymns are accessible to the congregations. The chanters are, they now have a beautiful repertoire with all the, ornamentations and beautiful things, but the people can't sing along with that. And they're struggling with it. What do you do? You've gone through the training, the rigorous certification process and all that, and yet, you're too much for the congregation. They do it, but then the priest is struggling. There's still a struggle there. And that's part of this, you have to plan together to say, okay, this Sunday, the chanter will do the cherubic hymn by him or herself. Not expect the congregation to do it. And that's the time the chanter can do the fancier, more complex stuff. The other hymns, we have to keep it singable to the congregation. Mm-hmm. So we have to, they're having change problems too, because you feel for them. They've studied this, it's beautiful music for them, and but it's not accessible to the people, so what do we do?
Yeah, and some of you are probably aware in the translation that we use now, which, the bishops and our bishop definitely have been clear that we're using this translation of the liturgy, but there's a few different settings of music that have been written for it. And the reason we went with this one in this parish is some of those other settings are, well, not only do they not have a hymnal, so you wouldn't have that element at all, but they're much more challenging. So they're not appropriate for building a music program from scratch. They're really for choir members that are already very skilled musicians, used to working together, doing harmonies and all that. They're not for starting from scratch and diving into something like that.
And that's what Kevin was really speaking to. He really provided a great service to our archdiocese by